means that I just can focus now on the content and not worry about all the bits and pieces. And it's also a very safe, nurturing, kind space. And it's a joyful space. So it's integrated into the creativity in a way that I don't think any of the social media platforms ever would have for me, because I was really on social media for one reason, and that was to get attention for the books, to be honest. That was my overlying motive. As that became harder and harder and harder to do, they became less and less and less interesting to me. But with Substack so far, and of course platforms can change, but so far, it is actually something quite different. It feels like it's part of the creativity. I am learning. There's huge input for me there. Whereas again, on social media, it was becoming impossible to find work and stuff that I wanted to read. It really was becoming impossible. Scroll, seeing all the wrong things. Whereas in Substack, my cup overfloweth.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 472 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have an interview with Orna Ross, an award-winning novelist, poet, creative catalyst, and the founder of the Alliance of Independent Authors. We talk about how Orna has kind of packed it all in with all the social medias, all the various platforms. She basically has her direct store at ornaross.com, and otherwise she's going all in on Substack. We talk about that, Orna's creative life, being a long-time creative catalyst, and so much more. And that's coming up later in this episode. But first, let's hear a word about this episode's sponsor. Hey, quick question. What are you doing November 10th through the 14th, 2026? Because if you write books, or if you want to, I'd love to see you in Las Vegas at AuthorNation. I'm speaking there, and I'll be hanging out, so just come on up and say hi. AuthorNation is the yearly gathering where authors come together to support one another, to collaborate, push the craft and business of publishing forward to that next level. It's not a stuffy conference. It's a room full of people who get it. All of it. The grind, the goals of getting your story into the hands of the right readers, they're your people. Whether you're just starting out, or if you're already running your own publishing business, there's a place for you to get the support you need. Check it out at AuthorNation.live, and if you come, I'll see you in Vegas this fall. Okay, comments from recent episodes over at starkreflections.ca for episode 471 with Becca Puglisi about the Fierce Thesaurus. Edwin Downward says, I confess I only own the Emotion Thesaurus in ebook form, so I can keep it on my phone, though my daughter does own the Negative Trait and the Positive Trait in paperback, which I have access to. The ability to play with different emotions and levels of emotion have been a great way to help choreograph a scene to show my characters responding in various ways. Thanks for that, Edwin. I appreciate the fact you've got it on your phone so you can easily access it, whereas maybe I'm more old school than you. I prefer to have the physical copy so I can quickly look things up because I'm not as adept at that phone machine in my hand. Okay, and over on Instagram for a teaser from that same episode, A.L. Waldell says, I love this series of books. They've helped me out so many times. Thank you for that. And yes, of course, these books and Becca and Angela have done such an amazing job. Love that. And I, of course, have ordered a copy directly from them of the latest book so I can support them in a better way, directly purchasing from an author. But that's it for comments for this episode. I love hearing what you're thinking about when you're listening to the episodes. I love learning from your reflections, your perspectives. And you can do that over at starkreflections.ca or on the socials, etc., wherever I might be paying attention to that. All right, let's roll the bumper, and I'm going to do a personal update. So did I mention in my personal update last week that I came down with a case of the shingles? That I've been on an antiviral medication for my doctor, and that I am still on a nerve pain medication that the doctor is treating me with. So this happened just after I got back from the 12 days on the road, the Writers of the Future, and then I did the Toronto Indie Author Conference, and had this chest pain on Monday, and I thought it was related to all the books I was hauling up and down the street in Toronto, but then when the rash showed up the next day, I realized, something more is going on. So it is shingles. Shingles, if you're not familiar with it, is basically if you've had the chickenpox. If you had the chickenpox, it lays dormant in the body, and it shows up sometimes for some people, and one of the triggers can be stress. And I have been under a significant amount of stress lately, hitting me from many sides. Part of which may have been, on the receiving end of some flack that was thrown at Draft to Digital for the recent changes that they made in order to try to overcome the onslaught of slop and content farmed crap that was just getting pushed through the system. But a combination of that and so many other stressful factors in my life, some of which are not just my own personal stresses, so I'm not going to share them here. It's not my place to share, but still stresses that I'm feeling directly. So in any case, I'm shaking my head at myself because in the fall, when I normally get my flu vaccine and I also get the COVID booster, I looked at it and said, well, I'm over 50 now. I'm 56. I'm going to be 57. Next week. But I'm older now. Maybe I should get the shingles vaccine. My first wife had it in her mid 40s, and it was extremely painful, not a good experience. And I was like, yeah, I should get that because I know someone who's gotten it, and it's not a pleasant experience. But then I went, you got to get it in 2 stages, and you got to get it, and I get it in 10 days. I'm like, I'm traveling. It's just a pain in the butt. I'm not going to do it. Well, I'm here to tell you that pain in the butt would something I wish I had done, because not only is it inconvenient, but it's very painful. And I've just finished the course of the week-long antiviral to try and reduce the severity, but I'm also on this additional medication that the doctor gave me to help reduce the nerve pain, because it's a nerve pain, which is really weird. So it's presented on my chest and it kind of wraps around my side, and it feels normally, like when it's not hurting too badly, it just feels like a burn, like it's a burn, like the skin has been burnt there. But every once in a while, the waves of pain come in really intense, deep pain, because it's nerve pain. And that is deep. And I honestly, if I didn't know that I had shingles, I would feel, because the pain in my lower chest is so intense, I would feel like, oh my God, I'm having a heart attack. And it's strangely gotten worse, even though the rash is starting to go away. And so all I'm saying in retrospect is, gosh darn it, I wish I'd gotten that vaccine. So that's happening. I'm just kind of muddling my way through, trying to get rest, trying not to push myself too hard in terms of exercise. But I am going to be going to Shockstock in London, Ontario, and I'll be there that first weekend in May. And Shockstock is a horror-themed conference, and I'll be there. So it's Friday from 3 p.m. and then Saturday and Sunday. I'll be there selling my books, selling my urban fantasy, selling my horror, selling my thriller, selling my true ghost story books, and I hope to do well. I've never done this conference before. It's always overlapped with something else I've done, so this is my first time there. And then I'm leaving right from London Sunday night, driving all the way up to Sudbury, because on at noon I'm going to be speaking to the Rotary Club there. I'm going to be talking about my journey through publishing to the Rotary Club as a local boy, growing up near Sudbury, Ontario, and just sharing my writing journey. And that's going to be kind of a fun sort of talk, because a lot of times I'm doing talks for writers, and I do, when I talk to writers, I do share my writing journey, but this is a little bit different, and it's always fun going back to my hometown and being able to share my journey for, mostly non-writer audience, which is kind of fun. And then I'm back for about a week, and then on the road again to Halifax, to TriCon, Canadian Science Fiction and Fantasy and Horror Conference in Halifax, and I'm going to be driving there with a buddy of mine from Ottawa. But so there's a lot of travel going on. I'm doing my best to rest and relax and not be all stressed out about things, but it's we'll see how this goes. And of course, I have done several more interviews with people this week, and so that's just stacking up my backlog. And I realize I think I'd done this interview with Orna back in February, as I'm slowly working my way through the backlist and getting those interviews out. But the other thing I need to get started working on is I have been noodling on the next book in my Canadian Werewolf series. More been making notes, and even auditory notes, like recording some stuff for myself when I'm driving, as I'm planning and scheming what book 9 is going to be, but also doing some work on the notes for finishing off a book in hand, a book for writers, and that's something I really desperately want to get done. At least get that first draft finished in the next week or so I can plan out the release of that and the next book for writers that's been on the back burner. But that's it for my personal update. Now it is time for us on the Stark Reflections podcast to dance. No, it's actually time for me to roll the bumper, and I'm going to roll the bumper, and you're going to get to hear this awesome conversation that I had with Orna Ross.
Hey, Orna, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Hey, Mark, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm actually disappointed in myself that I haven't had you on in the past 8 years. I mean, what the heck was I thinking? Maybe
Yeah,
maybe
Mark.
because I think I'd interviewed you either for Draft to Digital or Kobo or something like that, and I confused them all because it's all one big happy writing world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have definitely spoken online many times. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and even gotten to hang out together in person a few times as well.
sure, always a pleasure.
Fun times. I think we were at an event together in London when there was that Boston Marathon, when there was uh, an incident, wasn't that?
Oh, in
We were at a
London?
theater in London and there was a Kobo release party. You remember
Oh,
that all those years
I
ago?
sure do. Best
Yeah,
party ever.
that was good times, good times.
Oh gosh,
Anyways, so
that's a long time
I
ago.
we were going to be talking about you're all in on Substack, so you've gotten rid of all the social media and stuff like that, right?
That's right.
And again, I want to dig into that, but I want to backtrack a little bit because I know you as Orna Ross, the poet, and Orna Ross, the founder of the Alliance of Independent Authors. So I wonder if we can maybe people who hear your name or commonly associate you. Oh, Orna, she's the Alliance of Independent Authors. So
Okay.
let's get into your background as a writer, and then the foundation or the founding of the Alliance of Independent Authors, and then we can move to Orna 3.0.
Orna 3.0. I love it. Um, yeah, I've been a writer most of my life. I was a freelance journalist for many years, and but I always wanted to write a novel, and hit a significant birthday some time ago, and realized if I didn't do it then, I was never going to do it. Wrote the novel, then had the big gotta get it published thing. Meantime, I did myself self-published a print book back in the day. I know you were an indie pioneer who did it back when it wasn't easy as well. And so
So
I did.
how long back does that go when
So
you did
we're
that first
talking
one?
now 2002, probably
You
2003.
beat me by 2 years. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Aha!
Even
Woo!
more of a pioneer than I even knew. Wow.
Well, to be honest, what it was a women's group that I was in, and it was I was kind of a facilitator and coordinator for that group, and everybody kept asking me for the stuff, and so the easiest
Yeah.
thing to do was actually put it together in a book. And in Ireland at that time, if the book was well produced, you could get it distributed by Eason's, which was
Yeah.
the book. Yeah, you would know as an ex-bookseller, you would know who Eason's are.
Yeah.
So Eason's took the book, the print run sold out, and went into a second print run, which was incredible.
Wow.
And yeah, and so that was but that was completely separate to
So,
my
and that
life.
was a novel, right?
No, that was
No.
actually a guide. It was called Wealth of Women, Women of Wealth. It was really
Oh,
a spiritual guide to abundance and money and all that kind of thing for this women's group that were doing various things and trying to bring
okay.
young women forward. It was connected to the university that I used to do some work for at the time.
Okay.
So that it was a guide, and I think that's why it sold. It already had its community
Yeah, of course.
there. They were just waiting for it, really, and word of mouth then did the rest. So that was my experience of self-publishing. But I said I will never do that again because there was all the selling into the shops, returns, all those horrible things, and the
Yeah.
invoicing and the admin and all of that. It was a nightmare.
Right.
So I just kind of forgot about that. It was a one-off project. I never thought of myself as a self-publisher. Like everybody back then, you needed to get a publisher. So I did that whole thing, 54 rejections of my novel. And on number 55, Penguin took it, and I got a very nice two-book deal. And I thought, that's it now, golden ticket, put my feet up, just keep writing, life's
Wow.
dandy. And found out, as so many authors before me found out, that it's not the end of the story, it's the beginning of the story. And so the first book was fine, it did very well, and they were happy with it. The second book, I was really unhappy with what they wanted me to do. They basically wanted me to reproduce the first outing. I had different ideas anyway. I went with their ideas and I never felt happy about it. And the way they kind of presented it to the world, I wasn't happy with the marketing. They wouldn't let me sit in on a marketing meeting. They laughed when I asked for that, all of that. So we had our creative differences. And at the end of the two-book contract, I knew I wasn't going back to Penguin. And kind of where do you go when that hasn't worked out? You've nowhere to go almost, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I became ill. Actually, I got cancer, and I kind of just retreated for a while. And while I retreated, digital self-publishing, Amazon came along, Kobo came along, all these things happened, and I thought, oh, self-publishing is so much work, blah, blah, blah. I'm not very techy as well, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I did a tiny, slim volume of poetry just because all my author friends were saying, this is amazing, especially in the States. There was, this is
Yeah.
amazing. I make more money than I've ever made in my life. I can do whatever I want, blah, 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 blah. So I did publish this little poetry book, and instantly I saw, oh my God, this changes everything. You keep the rights and you put it out there both at the same time. And because I had worked briefly as a literary agent, I realized the significance of that. That the whole publishing industry is built on rights essentially, and that authors getting to keep the rights was just a complete game changer. So I looked around for an association to join. Sorry, this is very long-winded. I looked around for
No,
an
this is a good
association.
backstory. I love this. Thank you.
Looked around for an association to join. There was no association at that time doing what I felt kind of needed to be done. So myself and my husband, Philip, we talked about it, and he was just leaving corporate life and looking for kind of something to do. He said, I'll help you out, was what he said at first,
Yes.
if you want to do this. And I said, oh my God, do I want to do this? Anyway, I did. And that was the Alliance of Independent Authors. We launched at the London Book Fair 2012. Kobo was there, Amazon was there, everybody, lots of people who are still in Ally today were there. And we haven't looked back really. We very quickly realized we needed to form a non-profit. Philip soon realized it wasn't going to be about helping me, it was going to be about kind of running a pretty serious business because at the beginning we thought just our author friends, that was kind of the vision. But it grew very, very fast and we had to grow with it and we did. And now we have the team and they're fantastic. And now I'm kind of going back to my own books and saying, okay, I haven't had a lot of time over the last, whatever it is now, 14, 15 years. The team is now well able to run Ally. I'm still there, still doing what I love, the bits that I love to do, but I have more time. And so I'm back thinking about my own writing, my own publishing, and kind of where to go from here.
So I love that reunion that you've had with your muse or with the, okay, I've spent all this time building something to help the world, to help writers around the world. Because I think I've been a member of Ally for a long time, and I know Ally has members in what, probably 50 different countries or something like that, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's over 100, I think, actually. Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so you've reunited yourself with your writing. I have to ask, what kind of writing was it? Was it the long form fiction? Was it poetry? What was that first project that you got to sink your teeth into again?
Yeah, so I mean, I kept writing all the way through, but what was easiest for me to do in busy times was poetry. And
Right.
because you can
Yeah.
slot it in, and because also it's a beautiful contrast to running an organization where there's a lot of people energy. It's all online. I mean, everybody who works in Ally is remote. We were one of the first, we were remote long before people, before it
Yeah.
became a thing. We found it that way. So, but there's a lot of people energy, and poetry is just was a lovely contrast to that always for me. So, all the way along, I was writing poetry, and all the way along, I was working on a major, huge project, which was kind of connected to that first book that didn't go well with Penguin.
Right.
Part of that taken but developed and blown into a full series. And so I've been kind of tipping away at that all along. But I realized that if I'm going to actually get it done and get it out and stop just playing around and having fun, if I'm going to publish it, in other words, and not just write it, that it needed a lot more dedicated time. So that's the project that has really pulled me forward. It is a story based on a true life story. We have in Ireland a very well known poet. I'm sure you've heard of him, W.B. Yeats. And he, yes, indeed. And he made a career out of his supposedly unrequited love for an amazing Irish activist, Maud Gonne. And, once you dig into the story, you realize there's a huge amount of mythologizing going on. And, as ever, when you look at it from the woman's side of the bed sheet, things look a bit different.
Yeah.
So that's the project, and it's, as I said, it's a multi-book project, and it's narrated by the oldest woman in Ireland. She's 100 years old, and she's telling this story before she departs this world, because she feels it has huge significance for the world and for everybody, as I kind of do as well.
Wow.
So I hope I won't be 100 years old before it's all finished and out there.
But I mean, how many books is that already in the
It's
conception?
seven. It's seven books.
Seven.
So yeah, so I
Wow.
wrote to the end and then I wrote back. It's a multi-generational story. So essentially that was one of the things that was wrong with the book. In the first instance, too much was happening in too short a space.
Right.
And it's just too big a story with too many emotional twists and turns. So it's very much a relationship story, but it also it ties into the foundation of the Irish state. It ties into World War One. It ties into family stories, and just so there's just so much in their story that going in there properly felt like it needed that sort of canvas. It's unusual for that kind of book to do a series. So that in itself is a bit, you would not get a publisher to take this project, even if I wanted to, which I don't. I'm absolute indie out and out. I just don't go there at all and have no interest really. But even if you wanted to, nobody would touch it really because it is an unusual beast in that way. But I mean, that's what's great about indie, right? You
Yeah.
can, and it works. It can work, So
You can give yourself permission.
exactly, exactly.
I love that. And then the other thing that you've done is you've sort of forsaken all of the various bits and bobs and social media, and you've kind of gone kind of all in on Substack, or you've said, I'm going to do this properly and effectively. Let's talk about that process and how you identified it, why you chose that platform, some of the benefits, and let's get into the nitty gritty there because I've been admiring what you've been doing with Substack in the last several months, actually, that I've been attending to it.
Yeah, well, I only joined actually just before Christmas, so I consider myself to be a newbie, and I'm by no means an expert on Substack. So,
Yeah,
what I'm talking about here is kind of how I have decided to use it, and a
right.
little bit about what I've observed other authors doing, either to the good or feeling, oops, that's not going to work here. So yeah, people have been saying Substack to me for a very long time. And I'm going to be honest, when I originally heard all about the controversies they were having around content moderation, that kind of kept me away from even looking at it seriously. But then I did look at it because I was tired of social media. I just didn't feel I was, like, I didn't, it had ceased to be what it was and it had just been monetized. And the people I used to love talking to weren't turning up on my feed. And then Meta did that whole thing. And I mean, I left X when Musk took over. So I was already kind of easing myself away from social media, and now Ally is still there on those platforms and still has it's a different kind of thing I think
Yeah,
for a business. But for me personally, I was getting no creative joy out of it anymore. So what I loved about Substack was that everything can be there. And that was what I realized I wanted more than anything else at this phase of my writing life. So I switched to going direct first, pretty much all in on direct. I got, moved off WooCommerce, which I used for my website for many years, onto Shopify and moved everything else onto Substack. So my blog, my social, and I'm doing everything there. I'm serializing the novel. I am writing poetry. I still run that kind of self-development thing for what I call creativists, who are people who apply the creative process to everything in life, not just to work.
right.
And there's a kind of group of us there in a also, and Substack makes it very easy to run something like that. So I closed down my Patreon and moved it over. Didn't bring everybody with me, but just the simplicity of being on one platform was a big thing. The other big thing for me, and what would make it a success already for me before, anything else, is it's just been fantastic publishing to it. So publishing the chapters of the novel, already seeing, because it's a very long project, it's going to take a very long time to see it all through, already getting feedback on the chapters, just talking to readers has been fantastic. And having a schedule. So, getting 2 chapters a week out, all of that kind of thing. I'm just loving that. I'm just loving the turning up. I don't feel now that I'm publishing a blog post into the void. I feel like there are real people there actually. I'm not, I know there are real people. And the reality of that really concentrates the mind, I think. Because, if you're just publishing, and people had stopped commenting largely on WordPress blogs unless they were in a controversial arena. But,
Yeah,
an author's blog doesn't tend to get a lot of commentary anymore, besides, I love the book, when's the next one? There
yeah.
was no meaningful kind of discourse, and I've got that back again. And yeah, I just love everything about it, to be honest.
And it kind of replaces the newsletter too, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I've shifted so it is now my newsletter, and I've broken it down into, you can, and this is one of the things that I realize a lot of authors don't understand about Substack. You don't have to, you can segment on Substack. You don't have to send everything to everybody because
Right.
obviously I've got all these different things. Now, I would say if you're looking to use Substack as an income stream, and you want it to deliver for you in that way,
Yeah.
don't do what I've done, which
Right.
is be a bit of everything,
Right.
because that kind of confuses people. They don't know what to, they will be subscribing to. And so for
Right.
me, it's serving my creative purposes, and any commercial benefits are secondary. But if you're actually looking to create a readership around something, the ideal, like always, is do one thing, stay in your lane, do it again, do it again, do it
Right.
again, and eventually people kind of recognize, oh, you're that person. But I never was that person, and I never will be that person,
Yeah.
and I'm not using it in that way. And I know that for a lot of authors that I've been talking to already, the creative buzz they're getting from Substack makes it worthwhile enough. Other people obviously have commercial motives, and that's a different thing.
Right. Well, I love the fact that you have a single source, but you can divvy it up and say, okay, here's the serialized novel, here's poetry, and here's my what I like to call reflections
Yeah,
on things, reflections on the
exactly.
reality or on the writer's life or whatever it is, right? So people can subscribe and say, oh, I really like Orna's poetry, so that's what I want to be notified of. And someone else
Exactly.
might be gung ho about, I can't wait to read the next chapter and interact. And then the other folks maybe, okay, I just want to pick her brain from afar.
Exactly. And they're very different things, and they are simply not going to be the same audiences.
Right,
So with Substack, you can choose whether you're publishing just to the app or whether people will get it by email. And then they have themselves the option to opt in or opt out to
right,
app or email. So what I do is I publish a lot there. And because it suits me, suits my creative routine, draws the work out of me. But I don't want to be flooding people's inboxes, so I just publish to the app each time and then just deliver a roundup email to everybody. But
right,
at any time, if you wanted the chapter by chapter delivery by email, you can tick the box that allows you to get that. And I think that's one of the biggest things I would say to authors I know who be listening to this, wondering about things to do and not to do. The main mistake I would see authors making is that they don't locate the reader enough, because a lot of people are bringing their readership over to Substack, and that's great.
yeah,
But the readers are arriving there and kind of going, what is this place? What's going on? Why am I getting this? What's that? What's that for? And Substack's not intuitive at all. So it's really important, I think, to keep on reiterating how they say, how they get the bits that they want to get and not the rest, that is possible. And also, why you're using Substack. Tell them in advance, by the way, if you are thinking of moving over, have a strategy for moving. That was something that didn't go well for me because I brought people there intending to go once I had set them up on Substack, worked out what it did. Then I was going to go to my list and say, hey, I've gone over here and da 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 da. But I hadn't counted on the fact that Substack itself starts emailing your people. And
right.
I was really annoyed about that actually.
Oh,
So, because you don't have that. That is something that they do that I don't love. And with any platform, there are things you love and things you don't. But I would say to anybody listening, if you are considering the platform, work out a strategy for moving your people over there before you do it, and warn them in advance you're going to be doing that and what you're going to be doing there. So take the time you need to work out the strategy in advance. And I suppose the second thing to say is do have a strategy. Don't just kind of wander over there and think it's going to replace your author newsletter. It's a completely different thing. It's not
right,
the same thing at all. And it may not, if what you're looking for is a free author newsletter to sign up for your reader magnet, it's probably not the best place to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think the other difference between it and a newsletter is it's a combination blog slash newsletter slash social media. So, restacking is
Yeah.
kind of like saying, "Hey, I read this thing." And I like to restack because it makes me look smart. I take something smart that someone else said and I go, yeah, me too. And then I push it out in the world. I mean, because my feed, unlike the shit show that is Facebook,
Yeah.
which is, fun cat videos and dad jokes and horrible people being mean to one another across the board. Whereas every time I go to Substack, I get book nerd heaven.
Yeah.
The people I follow tend to be writers and industry people, and they're talking about the things I love the most, which is writing and books. And so I go there, and it's like an escape from the darkness in many ways. Maybe because
That's
it's so curated based on what I like to follow.
Yeah, because it's completely different to anywhere else. I think that is the important point to make, and one that kind of gets missed. People talk about it like it's just another platform, but it actually does something very unique, which is that it has its bit. Substack have their bit, which is notes and restacking and,
Yeah,
what you might call the social media wing. And they're very much in control of who sees what there and, the
yeah,
algorithm and all of that. But the algorithm tends to be, I think, much gentler and it's not ads driven and it does genuinely try to give you the stuff that you are interested in.
right.
But the other side of it, which you are in charge of, which is where you do your posts and your serious stuff, your work, your own work, whatever it might be, the reflections, the fiction, poetry, whatever, you very much control that. You are the person who decides who sees it, who's going to talk to you, who's going to turn up there, is really very much in your control. So it's almost like you've got the inner sanctum and the outer reaching out into the world, both in the same place. And that is unique as far as I can see. I can't
Yeah.
see any other platform doing it, or certainly doing it as well as they are doing it.
So let's break into this for people who aren't familiar. They're hearing about Substack and like the difference between creating an article or a blog post or whatever that is that we're creating versus a note. What's the difference there?
So a note is like a social media update, probably is the best way to think of
Okay.
it. It can be longer than that. I've seen people do quite long notes. I don't know what the upper limit for a note is, but essentially, if you think of it as like a social media update, you can add video, you can add imagery, you can add an audio to it. Oh no, you can't actually. That's a quirk. It
Oh,
has to
the
be
note,
video.
you can't embed things like that? Or
No, you have well, I haven't investigated it enough to say that with absolute certainty, but certainly you can't with ease. With ease, you can add a video or an image, and you have two little icons that will take you there to do that very
yeah.
easily. And then you put it out on notes and it goes off into the world and their algorithm takes it and it brings people who are interested in that who will like it or restack it as you said.
So what's the difference then between a note and a restack?
So a restack is one kind of note, but a note can be, you write it yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So it's like coming up and saying just this short thing that I want to share as opposed to a full length. And again, we
it's
don't really know what the limits are there in terms of the length.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen quite long notes, but the thing is that posts on Substack can be really, really long. I think that's the other thing that differentiates the platform. There are a lot of writers on the platform. There are a lot of intelligent people on the platform having really interesting discussions. And so what's interesting about notes is that the best way to feature and get attention on your notes is for you to go and find a conversation that is similar to what you talk about and join in that conversation. And that in itself is enough both to boost the algorithm in your favor, but also people then visit. It's very easy to visit your profile, see what you're about, and get some eyeballs on your work. So notes is what helps you to grow on Substack and to reach people that you wouldn't reach otherwise. Whereas your posts are generally you're bringing the readers. And again, Substack will help to some degree with that, but there's much more fluidity around notes. And you can generally, put notes up more often than posts. So I think of it, the way I think of it in my head is notes is like the social media wing of the posts end of things. Yeah.
And I one of the things I really appreciate is when I send my newsletter out, most people don't see it or they choose to ignore it. And I'm paying a significant amount of money for the privilege of getting to send this email. Whereas when I do a similar thing on Substack, A, I can go 3 times to 5 times as long and actually hold people's attention. And B, it goes to more than just the people who are on my newsletter because people can reshare it.
Exactly right. And you can see also their stats are quite good. So you can see who accessed your post from where,
Right.
and you can lean into that then if you find something that's working for you. So you will see that they'll tell you how many visited through the app, how many got it in their email, and the restacks and all of that are very visible. So you very quickly get a picture as well of what's working and what
Yeah.
people are responding well to. You might want to act on that, you might not, but it's definitely good information.
Now you have connected the rest of your ecosystem to Substack. You mentioned Shopify as one of the things.
Yeah, it's not connected Shopify in that it's off. It's in on a different
Right.
website, but it was part of my simplification strategy was
Okay.
to move off WooCommerce, which I liked in so many ways, but God, it's clunky and it's a lot of maintenance and plugins and blah blah. When
Yeah.
Shopify just made things more nimble, more, easier. I wanted it to be less about how I get the books out and much more about how I'm kind of marketing them. So you link out essentially to your website.
Okay.
You get an opportunity to do that both in the links on your profile page, but you can link out, of course, at any time out of any post that you write to your store, and you can have the usual kind of buy the book links at the end of your posts and so on, but that doesn't happen within. They don't really talk to each other, if that's what you were getting at.
Yeah, you're having to build that in yourself as part of
Yeah,
it, though.
yeah, yeah.
So you still have your Orna Ross website.
No, that's on
Oh,
Shopify now.
so that is Shopify. That's got
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
there. And then
yeah.
you've got this dynamic, multi-dimensional communication bit, right? With the sort of the three
Exactly.
main types of content that you're sharing there.
Exactly. And I think that's the other important thing for people who are listening who may not be familiar with Substack is that you own the list. You have, that's really important. It isn't like a platform that you're using where you don't have the list. So it's important every month or so to download the list just so you have that yourself so
Yeah,
you
of
can use
course.
it in however you wish to. Yeah.
So it sounds like you've completely simplified things, and I imagine that's been a huge boon to your creative juices, your efficiency as a writer, I imagine.
Definitely. It means that I just can focus now on the content and not worry about all the bits and pieces. And it's also, I mean, you alluded to this, it's a very safe, nurturing, kind space. And it's a joyful space. So it's integrated into the creativity in a way that I don't think any of the social media platforms ever would have for me, because I was really on social media for one reason, and that was to get attention for the books, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was my overlying motive. I loved the conversations. I really did. I'm that kind of person. I like that. I know loads of authors don't, but I do. I enjoyed all of that, but I wouldn't have been there. Just, I would not have had an active Facebook presence probably as a private person.
Right.
So it was that was the motivation was I'm here to kind of get attention for the books. As that became harder and harder and harder to do, they became less and less and less interesting to me.
Right.
But with Substack so far, and of course platforms can change, but so far it is actually something quite different. It feels like it's part of the creativity. I am learning. There's huge input for me there. Whereas again on social media, it was becoming impossible to find work and stuff that I wanted to read. It really was becoming impossible. Scroll, 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 seeing all the wrong things. Whereas in Substack, I mean, my cup overfloweth. I haven't got
Yeah.
time to get near a quarter of the goodness. There's just fantastic things there all the time. And so it's part now, it really feels like part of my creative life to go on there every so often. Have to control it. Big,
Yeah.
big time suck if you don't. I mean, it's exactly like social media in that way, probably more
Right.
so because, as you say, the posts go long over there and
Yeah, they
they're
do.
good. They are really, really good.
Yeah.
Well, outside of the rash, there is, like every platform, it has
Yes.
some content now, particularly even in the short time I've been there, I can see more content that's lazier and slop of, that isn't as good. But it's very easy to get that out of your own personal stream.
So you're actually creating and writing more now with this simplified process, I imagine.
Yes, yes, definitely.
How do you, because you have three main elements, how do you decide, or is it scheduled? So you said 2 chapters a week, so you can pre-schedule too, right?
Yes, oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh God, that's very much part of it. I wouldn't be able to spontaneously do it. So I organize around the moon. At new moon time, I set the intentions for the month, and we do this as a group, and kind of plan out what's going to come for the next month, and then I do one of each kind of things that I'm doing in a row. So I preface every post with either fiction, poetry, or go creative. So people know this is a
Right.
go creative post. Even on notes, I will just put that at the beginning so people get a warning or whatever,
Yeah.
an alert that that's what it is. And then I'm trying to keep it more or less in rotation. So fiction, poetry, and go creative. And then I do a monthly post, Substack for authors, just again, like this. It's not a how to, it's a kind of show and tell. This is what I've been doing this month
Right.
and how that has worked and what doesn't work and, that kind of thing. So, and then at full moon, kind of revisit. So that's 2 weeks later, kind of revisit the intentions, see how they're going, renew if they're still on board, let go of anything that hasn't been working too well. And like I say, we do this together, so it's fun, and we're all talking about very different things because these people are applying the creative process to all sorts of things in life, not just to
Yeah.
making books. And yeah, do the same thing then for the second fortnight. So I've moved into, I always used to work on a weekly rhythm, weeks, months, and quarters. Now it's every 2 weeks. And that came out of Substack and just linking in with some people who were doing what's called lunar planning and made me more aware of the moon, which I've always loved the moon. I've written poems about the moon. So
Yeah.
it was just really nice to move into that rhythm. And that has been really good for me as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. It's I mean, let's be honest, like the calendar's built on it. When
Yeah.
you think about the lunar cycle, right? Um,
Absolutely. When you go into it, you realize there's so much there. There's a great wealth and of myth and magic and
yes.
folklore, and there's just so much there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really lovely to feel very connected to that. So that's been another great joy that it's brought.
I love that. I love that. And it's opened up so many possibilities. Now, you did mention Substack has a possibility of it being a revenue source as well. It's not a
Yeah.
given, but it can be, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose the first thing that an author needs to decide is that, am I doing this because I want it to be a revenue source, or am I doing it for creative reasons? And it's like, it's not, it can be both, but it's which one is first for you. Because
Yeah.
if you want it to be a revenue source and you are treating it mostly as a creative outlet, then that ain't going to work. So, yeah, you can have free subscribers and paid subscribers. I know that a lot of authors choose not to go paid at all. They just want to put their
Yeah.
stuff out there, and that's a really valid choice. But if you want to offer paid subscribers something more special, then it's so easy. They make all the furniture of that very easy. So I always had a membership reader club on my website. And again, with WooCommerce plugins, it was clunky. It worked, but it was a lot of work to keep it running and for it not to break. I also was on Patreon, which I never loved. It was good in the fact that it had the tools that allowed you to do certain things, but I never felt at home there. I found it again very clunky, not very pretty. I just never had a good feeling there.
Yeah.
Whereas Substack, I really like the way they do it, and it makes it very, very easy. So yeah, it's very possible to create an income stream on Substack if you're offering something of value over and beyond the content of your books, I would say. It is
Yeah.
difficult, I think, to just serialize a book, fiction or nonfiction, and get that sort of return. But if you're
Right.
doing work that is helpful to people, inspirational, or you've got good how-to stuff, or I mean, they love on Substack what goes down really well is anything political, particularly if it's based around North American politics, well, USA politics, I suppose, really, but that goes down really well. A lot of non-fiction authors are living. One of a friend of mine, Karen Cadwalder, who was let go from The Guardian, is now still able to do her investigative journalism because of her supporters on Substack. So, it can be a really decent revenue for people if it's the right kind of material presented in the right kind of way.
Oh, awesome. Orna, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights with me. Just sort of final questions, because like myself, you've been independently spirited for a long time and lived in both worlds, traditional publishing and indie publishing. What's some advice you would want to endow upon listeners to the podcast that you think would be useful? Maybe some things that you wish more people knew.
If, about Substack or
Or
just
just in
generally?
general about the writing life.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing with writers at the moment is a lot of anxiety and a lot of kind of feeling, is it worth doing this at all? Because if AI can write so fluidly, and why am I doing this? And as it gets better and better, what's the point? And somebody else can, write like me. A machine can write like me if I feed it the right stuff and all of that. So I think that's the big kind of challenge for us in this time, is to understand why we write and what writing is serving, for us as human beings. And for each of us, that's going to be a different answer. It's not the same answer for everybody, but for everybody, it will circle in somewhere around meaning and purpose. So for me, what's happening at the moment is a real opportunity for us as authors to understand our value and what our value is for readers, and to understand how to, and then from there to build on it in order to communicate in the most human way possible. Unmistakably human is kind of what we have to try and be, and that's not easy. And when they're, it's definitely not an easy thing to do, but I think it's a really worthwhile, valuable thing to do. And in a way, we're being forced to do it, and I welcome that.
Awesome. Orna, normally I say, where can people find you online on all the socials, but where on Substack can people find you online?
So basically, yeah, it's ornaross.com or Orna Ross on Substack. That's it.
Awesome. Orna, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Oh, thank you, Mark, so much. Always so lovely. Take care.
Okay, so a few things to talk about from this conversation is the first concept is the concept of simplifying and how easy Substack allows that. I love Orna's approach to this. And when I've been talking to writers in the consulting that I've been doing for them, it's really interesting because I've often described Substack as a combination of social media meets blog meets your newsletter. And it really does capture all three of those things. It can replace like Patreon and that place where people can subscribe and get updates to you. It has a lot of these elements and they come together nicely. And when I think about how people decide to publish, and again, I was just talking to a writer earlier today, talking about the pros and cons of, I'm going to publish direct to these platforms, or I'm going to use a distributor like Drafted Digital. And for many people, it's the simplicity of just using a single platform to get to a bunch of places because it saves time and energy. And for some people, that's more important than that extra 10% margin, or even that dollar a month processing fee, a maintenance fee, I should say, that exists there. And so, well, it exists there up until the time you get to a certain point in earnings, and then in that case, Drafted Digital is making that $12 off of you already, so they're not going to double dip. So that's what they do there. But there's a value in that simplicity, and it's really important for us as authors to remember that what's valuable for you may not be valuable for me. And so some people prefer to do the extra work and have the time to do it, and other people don't want to do that. And I love how Orna came to the decision like, well, here's why, know your why, here's why I'm on social media, here's why I'm on all these different platforms, and I'm not getting the value I used to get from them. So I want to simplify this. And she's been loving the experience. She's been loving going back to being a creator more, which I think is great. And that kind of leads to sort of an offshoot reflection. And, Orna created the Alliance of Independent Authors to fill a hole in the industry, to help other writers. And I know how hard it is when you go out and start doing things to help writers, how much that takes away from your own creative life. And I'm so excited to see. Now, she's still involved, obviously, in the Alliance of Independent Authors, but I love that she's claimed back so much of her creative life. I love that for Orna. She's an amazing person. I think she is awesome, a great, gifted writer, and a wonderful person. And so I'm so excited to see what she's doing as she's doubling back down on that creativity. Speaking of doubling down, to go back to refer to something Joanna Penn always says, doubling down on your humanity. And this is so important. So, Orna talking about understanding our value as writers and creators to communicate in an unmistakably human way in the best manner possible. And that becomes more and more important. Even for those of us, like Joe Penn, who embrace the leveraging of AI in aspects of their creative life so they can do the fun writing that they love. They can leverage AI to help give them more time for doing those things that they love, and leveraging AI to take care of some of the things they don't love so much. But that reminder of the humanity and the unmistakably human creativity, which I think is so cool and so fascinating. And I think that's the way that we can stand out amongst the digital slush, is that humanity that we put into our art and into our creativity. And even if we are leveraging technology to put the humanity in, that's us controlling it. That's us working with the tools, just like saying, oh, you use a physical paintbrush and I use a digital paintbrush. There are different tools that people can use, or you're getting the lighting effect by doing it by the placement of physical light on objects whereas someone else may be adjusting that post photography in order to adjust the light or whatever. So again, it's the different ways that different artists can use different creative medium. But also, I love the way Orna says, in the unmistakably human way. And then the last thing I want to reflect on that I just adore is how Orna describes herself in her biography as a creative catalyst. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Thinking about, like, that's what she does, right? She is a creative catalyst. I love that. It's such an apt description for what she does on a day-to-day basis. And so I love that, and I think it's so cool, and I wanted to just kind of point that out, but I want to remind you, as you're thinking about your biography and the things that define you to the world, as well as the value that you bring to your readers or to the world in general, what are the ways that you can describe yourself as well? I mean, I've chosen in a lot of cases, because I wear so many different hats in the book industry, kind of book nerd, kind of loosely covers them all in a way that's quite me, right? Because it's funny and it's a little bit, it's serious and funny at the same time, whatever. So it's very much, it fits in with my personality as well. I don't think I've found the optimum one like what Orna does, like creative catalyst, but I'm going to work on it. And are you going to work on it? What are you going to work on? I'd love to hear what you're reflecting on as ways to describe yourself that can let your audience, your readers know, hey, this is who you got here, right? And that comes back to being unmistakably human. But in any case, that is it for my reflections. That is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about and you're reflecting about. Please feel free to leave those comments over at starkreflections.ca or wherever you're listening to the podcast. I will try to catch those comments and share them back, reflect with you, and help other listeners learn, just as we all are learning on this awesome ongoing writing and publishing journey. If you do enjoy this episode or any episode of the podcast, would appreciate you leaving a review, or better yet, sharing this episode or any episode that you've enjoyed with someone that you think would find value in it, because that's a way you can pay it forward, not just to the person you're sharing it with who's going to benefit from listening to a great guest like Orna, but also helping me, because it's always nice too, right? Because we all help each other. That's what we're here for. And I will be here again next week. So until next week, and until next episode, this is as always, and I merged the two words together. Normally I would cut this part and start again, but I'm not going to cut it, though I shall start again. Until next week, and until next episode, as always, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you great writing and good Stark reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.
Hey, Orna. Wow. Let me try again. All right, let's try again. Hey, Orna. Welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.